As I mentioned some time back, seasoned speakers also go through a small element of stress or anxiety, and they are good at managing that. Anxiety or fear can actually be managed in two ways. One is psychological and two is physical. And the reason we do that is both the mental and physical self is kind of taken care of, and there is control created just before we deliver the talk or a speech. Psychological way of handling our fears. The first one that I would share or suggest would be face your fear. Before I get into explaining about it, I would want to mention a small experience of mine. I am a victim of acrophobia, or generally called as vertigo, fear of heights. Few years ago, when I started working with Indus School of Leadership, we had this challenge course that was a part of our simulation. And challenge course is a 75 feet high structure where people are supposed to climb to and then do their zip line. I'm sure most of you must have at least heard or seen or experienced what a zip line is at a height of 75 feet. I had joined Indus School of Leadership as a trainer, as a lead faculty, and that being the case, it was important for me to, one, experience that constantly every now and then, and also ensure that participants who would want to experience zipline, I am equipped and I have learned the art of being able to belay them. Now this was a very tensed situation because I was absolutely not okay going up the challenge course, and which is where I stumbled upon my learning around being able to confront my fear. And I said, this is a fear that I have to admit and also not deny it, and the best way to do that is to face the fear. The first time when I did zipline, I was nervous, I was trembling. The second time the ratio was much lesser, but over a period of time, having belayed a lot of people and having ziplined myself all alone, I think I got confident over a period of time. And which is why I would say psychologically it is very important for us to be able to face the fear and ensure that we actually make things happen by experiencing it and admitting it. Secondly, worst case scenario, meaning to assume and imagine and understand that who your audience is going to be. The second way of confronting our fears would be to imagine the worst case scenario. The very exercise of visualizing what the worst case scenario would be, for example, audience booing at you, or maybe you've forgotten your lines, or maybe there's a screeching happening on the mic, or any of these will add to anxiety. But remember, there are a set of audience who are sitting right in front of you who are actually focusing on your content. And also there are people in the crowd who can sympathize with you if any of this has happened. While any of this can happen, the intent here is to share of how visualizing what can happen and what you might encounter will actually help you be prepared and be more confident about how you are going to deliver your talk. And let us imagine, just in case something like this has actually happened, I would say that's not a big deal. It is okay to commit mistakes. Just move ahead and give very little space for audience to consciously recognize what the error is and move forward in terms of what your talk is going to be around. And that being the case will actually help you gain confidence of the audience immediately and have a smooth ride thereafter. The second way, which was physical ways of confronting our fears, there are quite a few, and I will mention something that's worked for me and a couple of friends who are in a similar domain. The most simple thing would be to take deep breathing in a very slow mode or slow motion, and ensure that you gain control over your breathing. And remember, you have to breathe from your nose. Should you want, you can always close your eyes and visualize your entire talk that you're going to deliver while you are breathing in and breathing out. The second one could be a Superwoman pose, a sense of pride, a sense of confidence, and a small push for you to be able to deliver the talk in the best way. Third would be to loosen up, to warm up a little bit just before you're going to get onto the stage or head towards the podium. Obviously, if you're sitting on the dais already as one of the keynote speakers, you might not have time to loosen up. So ensure that you do it just before you get into the program or the function or the celebration which you'll be a part of. The next way would be to know your material very well. Remember, the best speakers are the ones who have prepared well, practiced enough, and are the ones who know their topic very, very well. There's no need for you to by heart or memorize what you're going to deliver. But yes, it is important for you to know all the key points that you're going to deliver step by step in the sequence that they need to come in. It is also important that while you practice, you actually know the script or you actually know the topic forward and backward. And at any point in time, if you've moved here and there in terms of the sequence, you know how to deal with it in the quickest way possible and still ensure that the audience is in sync with what you're going to talk. And one of the last things that I can suggest in terms of physical way to be able to confront our fears, and which is quite an interesting one, would be to interact with your audience. There are a few cases where you can interact with your audience, and there are a few cases where we cannot. In the cases where we can, it always makes sense for us to maybe walk in between the zone where the audience is seated and ask a couple of live questions and respond with some positive messages for the responses that you're getting from the audience. In cases where you cannot get into the audience zone, then yes, it always makes sense for us to share a couple of stories which the audience can relate to. Simple methods like this, be it psychological ways or physical ways of being able to confront our fears, are some things that we can actually have a control over and constantly boost our confidence just before or while we are delivering the talk in quite an easy way. Quickly, let me summarize what we've understood in this session. We started off this session with understanding what a speaking event is and what are the different types of speaking events that we might be a part of. What are the different types of speeches and purpose of a speech, and how do we deliver a speech. We also understood the very reason or the sources of the fear, stress or anxieties we might go through. And finally, ways in which we can confront our fears. And broadly we covered psychological and physical ways of confronting our fears. Quickly, I will summarize few key elements that we have to remember while we deliver a speech, and that would be in three parts: before I have to deliver a speech, during the day of the event, and maybe post delivery of the talk or the speech. Let me quickly take you through three important parts that now we have to remember when we are preparing to deliver a speech or a talk. The first part is, what do we do just before the event? There are three important elements. One, prepare and practice as well as possible. Second, visualize the entire event. Visualize the speech that you're going to deliver. Visualize your audience, the way they are going to respond, the way you are going to deliver the talk, and the way you will receive accolades from them. And most importantly, just relax before the talk. Deep breathe and warm up if you think that helps you. Second part would be during the speech. Remember, start strong and start with a couple of impact lines which would be your attention getter. Audience should have actually started listening to you from the very beginning you start delivering the talk or the speech. Secondly, don't worry about any stumbles that are going to happen while you're delivering the talk or a speech. Even if you would stumble, just leave it aside and proceed from where you stopped. And I'm sure audience will actually go in sync with what you want to talk to them or share with them all about. The last part would be after you've delivered your speech or the talk. Yes, this is also as important as before you deliver a speech or a talk. And here is the time when you should speak to people who have attended your talk and seek feedback. And remember, feedback is something that is very constructive by its very nature. So any feedback that we receive, we have to assume that it is true and try to work upon it. One is to get feedback from the audience, and the other way would be self-evaluation. I am sure we would have friends who would have recorded our video. It is always good to go back to the recording and check how we delivered, how one delivered the session, and what are those elements where we would have missed out on something or stumbled upon or missed eye contact with the audience. Any of this, we can always collate it and use this as a constructive feedback to be able to prepare a better speech for the next time.